Hi, this episode is with my friend and colleague, Rick Abels. Rick created a consultancy out of his experience with ADP. One of the most interesting stories he has is about how he went in to help the artist who sells in Costco, Doidle, and guy was making 7 mil a year and in his own way. And Rick went in, transformed the whole operation, got him up to like 21 million by putting in proper processes for sales, marketing, distribution. And it's one of those stories where you don't think about all the inner workings and what happens behind the scenes to make a brand blow up. And I think it's such an interesting story. I asked him to come on and tell us about it. And he talked about how he does other consulting to other companies to help them scale and put in processes and improvements in place so that you can scale. So take a listen. You're going to enjoy it. You'll get a lot out of it. Let's get into it. Rick Abels, serial entrepreneur and operator. You've generated over 400 million in revenue across 50 different businesses. You broke a 5-year plateau to grow Dowdle folk art from 7 to 21 million in under a year, built a sales team in ADP from 40K to 11 million annually. And you then scaled a law firm from 5K a month to 400K a month. And today, Rick builds revenue systems for CEOs who want predictable growth without being the bottleneck. Rick, good to see you again, my friend.
Likewise. Good to be here.
I reached out to you because I saw you doing some stuff, and we've been working together over the last year or so in different projects. I know you got a couple of big speaking gigs coming up. Yours is an interesting story, especially the Dowdle art. I was going to dig into that with you and talk because that was a unique situation. And that was he's in Costco. Is that correct? He sells.
Yeah, so they're an interesting business. They're a manufacturing company, but he's also an art company. So he creates art, paintings, things like that, works for Disney. Thomas Kincaid, if you remember, the artist of light, Eric kind of took over some of that stuff. He does a lot of folk art. And so he also works with a lot of cities in creating art, for example, the city of Atlanta. And then he'll create a painting, the city of Atlanta, that has the various pieces of the general area. And then they turn those into puzzles that people can use. So if you're ever in Costco and you see puzzles, and that's that artwork. He's got probably over 250 different pieces of artwork that have been turned into puzzles.
That's cool. Going into a project like that and being able to get the CEO to like pretty much get out of their own way, right? And go in and implement some processes and systems.
Eric, like a lot of CEOs, he's what the business does. He's an artist, a drawer, always carrying around his notebook. He's a great ambassador of his own brand. I initially got brought in as a part-time gig. He needed me to go through the entire company A to Z and tell him where I thought he can make some improvements. So I was stepping in as a consultant. First thing I did is I interviewed almost everybody I can get my hands on. He had about 65 to 70 employees over a couple of different locations, from sales to artists to supplies to operations to shipping, supply chain, that sort of thing. I looked at every piece of software. We dove into accounting, ran a full SWOT analysis, and then I presented this plan of what I thought they should do to leadership. Eric went through everything, asking a lot of questions, and their CMO was asking a lot of questions. Finally, Eric asked, who's going to do it? I said, I don't know. That's your guys' problem. He said they had just parted with their old CEO, who just wasn't kind of getting them anywhere. And these guys had been at the same revenue for at least 5 years. And he talked about all the time, like, I just can't get revenue to change. I can't get over that 10 million mark. And anyways, there in the middle of this room, he said, Rick, how about you do it? How about you come in and be our CEO and put all this stuff into work? We've loved working with you over the last couple of weeks and months. You've done this before again and again. We'd like you to step in so I can focus on painting and on the artists, and you can own everything else. So I'll focus on those things. I'll come in every day. I'll work with the artists. He has an art gallery in his own house, and he would work from there many times, but he came in every day and would work with the artists. I need to be honest, like, we also got lucky because this is during COVID. So we had a huge amount of tailwind for people that were wanting puzzles, families that were at home looking for things to do together. They'd been stuck at revenue for a long time. The opportunity was there. They just weren't capturing it yet. And so we were a ways into COVID at this point in time. I first started engaging in with them probably like March of 2020. So COVID was just kind of getting up and going. There was more than revenue to fix. There were legal issues going on. None of his artwork had IP protection, like zero. So I called an attorney that could help with all the IP pieces and put that in a trust where he could be able to, monetize on that. We went through, and first thing we did was raise prices. He hadn't raised prices in almost 15 years. And obviously had to start negotiating with Costco on that. We expanded Costco dramatically. We expanded into Walmart. We were rolling out some of the new partnerships with Disney. We were also having Eric on cruise ships. Eric would actually show up and talk about his art. People would buy the art and he would sign it right there. That's how we were able to grow from the 7 million plateau that they were at to 21 million in underneath a year. The circumstances help, but someone had to make the decisions and actually capture things. We rolled out a couple of new products. We opened up a couple of other channels for producing the puzzles. There's actually only a couple of companies in the US that do that, and we were taking almost all of their business. And so we bought some other machines and had to start doing that as well and getting paper. There was just a huge supply chain piece that went into it as well. So that's kind of Dowdle and what we were able to do. Also able to pay off a lot of debt. We were able to get them much more profitable, replacing software, upgrading systems, and building systems, the machine that they could be able to use moving into the future.
Very cool. So I love those kind of turnaround stories, and the CEOs or the founder knows that they need to scale. They're not doing everything they need. They just don't have experience doing it. So having somebody like you come in and streamline it and basically put some rocket fuel to it, right?
Yep. And really, I think the big thing that I talk about all the time is a revenue system versus a revenue habit. Most companies have revenue habits, meaning that revenue is coming in as long as someone is pedaling the bike hard. It's a habit. Someone can get in there, they can be able to do it. And the founder is usually that person. It's usually the person that's closing the deals. He's fixing the broken campaigns. He's the backstop. He's, he or she is doing all of these various things, but it takes them to be involved to make sure that everything is getting done. Versus a revenue system is where growth happens by design. There's a process, there's accountability, there's predictability. The founder can actually step back at that point and revenue is still going to move forward. Most companies I see under the 20 million mark have really good habits, but don't have systems. And that's why they're stuck. They scaled on effort. Once you get to the point where you're giving 100% of effort, you can't scale that anymore. You need something else. It's like pedaling the bike. Once you're pedaling as hard as you can't pedal any harder. When you bring in someone else to pedal the bike harder than you, usually they're not going to pedal that much. You have to have a system. In that situation, you got to change the mode of transportation. You need a machine that's going to be running for you 24/7 instead of just your own personal effort.
What do you look at first when a founder says we're stuck?
So the first question I like to ask is, if you disappear for 30 days, what happens to revenue? And most of the time, the answer is not revenue drops. That's what people think you're trying to get to. A lot of the founders and companies and businesses that I work with, it's not that revenue drops if they're gone for 30 days. It's that revenue stays flat. And that's the problem. A lot of the companies I work with and see over almost 30 years now, they're just stuck. They're not growing even when the CEO is giving that effort, pedaling the bike as fast as possible because they need systems. A lot of the companies are living off existing clients. They're not actively generating new business. They assume things will just carry on as they always have. And that's a massive warning sign. When someone says they're stuck, You never know when those current clients have something's going to hit. AI is going to change something and disrupt. A key client might get acquired. The economy shifts. I just dealt with the CEO 2 weeks ago that rather large. They did $600 million in revenue. They sold to a PE firm. And I don't want to share a whole bunch of information, but long story short, the CEO of the PE firm was arrested. And because he was arrested in the bylaws of the PE firm, all other investors were able to come in. That totally changed the relationship with this CEO of this company, on track to do 1 billion this year, totally changed the trajectory. And the other investors who were offshore wanted to bring in their own people. So here's a guy that had built this business for 20 plus years. He and his partner were doing extremely well. They owned their industry inside and out, but there's nothing they could do. So that happens with clients. There's just things that change. So segments can disappear, overnight. When someone says they're stuck, it's trying to figure out what systems do you have in place? What are your SOPs? What do your playbooks look like? Something else that is really important that most founders and CEOs aren't thinking about when it comes to revenue is that you have to be in this mentality of what you did for me yesterday doesn't count anymore. It's what did you do for me today? What are you doing for me today? What are you doing tomorrow? Yes, it's great what you did before. And a lot of sales reps and sales professionals hang their hat on, oh, they did this big thing back then, or I brought in this great big deal. But a leader needs to say, that's great, but you need to go back out there and perform again. I need to know what you're going to bring in today. That's some of the stuff in working with leaders when they say they're stuck or revenue isn't progressing as fast as they want it to or think it should, or investors think it should. And by asking that question, we start unraveling what systems they have and then being able to pull that apart so we can build it back together in a way that's going to last long term.
It blows me away. You and I've talked about this before. So many successful companies I've helped over the years don't have any way of measuring cost per employee, revenue per employee. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. But now with AI, you can implement tools and dashboards and automations that'll tell you on a daily. You could talk to Claude like it was your CFO if you have the right pieces in place. It always blows me away how much successful business owners don't know about their business.
The biggest reason I find is because they're busy doing the business.
Yeah.
They have the intentions and know what they want to get out of it. They just are so busy doing all of these other things because it is individual effort and there's no automation happening. And you and I have talked about this in great length. There's no automation. There's no sort of machine. Everything is just everybody shows up every day and does the best they can, which is great. But that's what they're not seeing growth.
They're good at it and they're gritty. And like so many successful entrepreneurs out there, just gritty as hell, scrappy, start it up, get to a few million. And then it's just like, okay, let's just hold on to what we have. Let's don't change anything. Let's don't add anything. Let's don't spend anything. We were talking the other day, when you're in a revenue rise and then it plateaus, especially if you're thinking about selling in the next year or two, if you don't get that revenue spiking again, you're going to take a hit on your valuation. They're going to give you a valuation based on your plateau number, not on what you did in the past. When I get to these clients that are like, okay, we got to do something here. We're about to make a move. They've never spent anything on marketing. They want to hire a CMO, but they want like somebody in-house for 85 or 135K. That's just not realistic anymore, is it?
It's not realistic. And you and I both know, I lost count years ago. So many companies I talk to say, oh, we don't do marketing. Yeah. I work with a publicly traded company. And when I started working with them, we don't do marketing. We don't do any of that. We just rely on this one kind of drum or this piano key. And that's just the piano key that we hit over and over again. And that just does not make a beautiful song. It's good for revenue, but as you mentioned before, depending on how that revenue is coming in for this particular company, they were doing really good at some one-off revenue. Investors aren't too happy about that when you're having to do that quarterly call and talk about that spike in revenue, but it was all just one-time revenue. You also need to be making sure that the machine is working in the right area of revenue generation, not just all of the one-off stuff. You're trying to get that annual recurring revenue, which makes you much more interesting to investors if they're going to come in or someone to purchase your business, and quite honestly, just profitability along the way. So that should be the opening discussion of every single business meeting. How do we get to that as soon as possible?
Yeah, you have to have stats and data to analyze in several different ways. The good news is once you have that data, you can use so many tools to analyze it and figure out where to go to increase your revenue. The data will tell you where to go. It's just you got to analyze it. You have to put the tools to it, right?
And as you mentioned, AI is really good at that now. I remember the days, I think I was a very early user of Tableau, which eventually was purchased by Salesforce.com. I think my memory is correct. I think we paid $50,000 to $75,000 a year for the use of Tableau. We had to have 2 or 3 data analysts to program Tableau and get the dashboards built. It used to be so expensive with the data that you had, and everyone knows data is king. But now AI can do amazing things with your data. If you plug it in the right way, you can just sit there and ask questions instead of having to go to your CFO and say, well, hey, what is this trend or what is this? And it might take them 3-4 days a week to be able to come back up with just, one number. Now you can get those numbers almost instantly within minutes. You can sit in a boardroom and you can get, those questions answers right there live with AI. And so that's some of the stuff behind the curtain that needs to be happening, right? That CEOs are using the tools at their disposal to give them information so they can make the best decision moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. You have the tools now, and everything is bundled in now. Microsoft Copilot and Excel is actually really good now, and that's just bundled in free. You can talk to it like a human and ask it questions about what to do, how to think about your data. It's just amazing what it can do.
Something on that's interesting too, Clayton. A lot of times people, obviously we read in the news today that a lot of people are still using AI as a chatbot. Right? AI is also a great teacher. If you have the data and you're plugging it in, if you don't know what questions to ask, you can start having AI say, hey, here's the data. What do you see in this? What questions should I be asking? What are best practices? The companies that I work with, I teach them how to, and you and I have talked about this in great length before, how to set up AI consultants, how to have an AI CFO, how to have an AI CMO, how to have an AI COO, so that AI is trained in a way and has access to the right data where it's not just giving you generic answers, where it's actually looking at your business, your data, and then being able to give you best case scenario, the best advice they can give you, based on your data. It's all possible now. We just got to get it set up the right way.
Don't try to use an LLM out of the box without training it and giving it your master prompt, giving it everything about you and your company and your goals and objectives. You really have to feed it before it becomes your advisor.
Once it does, boy, is it just amazing. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. Just this morning, I was working on something in Claude, and I gave it a website to scrape, a website that I own to scrape, and like, hey, what's missing, what's not? And it kept saying, oh, well, I can't read that. Take screenshots. And I'd say, no, you can read that. Oh, well, I don't have anyways, we went through 3 versions of, no, you can try it now. And it finally went, oh yeah, sorry, I can read it. Okay, I see what's going on. So sometimes you have to be a little more forceful if you understand what its capabilities are. And then when it's giving information, I always try to red hat that information, i.e., try to play devil's advocate on that. Where are the holes that I'm not seeing? Fight back just a little bit. Where are some places that this could go wrong? So on and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was same thing. And ChatGPT, it seems like in the last week or so has been missing more than hitting for a lot of people on hallucinations and just misinterpreting data. One of the guys that I work with is talking about setting up automations, and you have to set up you can't just turn automations and AI and say, okay, go ahead and do all this for me. It has to be a human looking at it, checking it, verifying. It's still not autonomous yet. It still needs a human involved, right?
Absolutely. And I'm not trying to say we're never going to get to that point, but two businesses are not the same, right? Your clients aren't the same. Your cash flow isn't the same. I mean, you could take two dry cleaners and just using that as an example, and things might be different. What one might be able to automate a little bit easier, someone else in a different circumstance. You absolutely can use AI to help build automations, but you also need to be very involved from the get-go, feeding it the right information. Junk in gets you junk out. So feeding it the right information, connected to the right data, knowing how it acts and what it should do, knowing, like I told you this morning, when you can push back and say, no, that's fluff. A lot of AI right now says, give me 5 minutes and I'll build this for you. And then it stops. And it's hallucinating because it's never going to build it. You have to keep priming it and priming it. Yeah. That's just how it is right now.
I've had that a lot. And then I got vendors and contractors that work for us. So, went from people not being able to communicate very well and sending 1-2 sentence replies to 3 paragraph replies. I don't mind that you're using ChatGPT to reply to my email, but you should at least humanize it and take out the M dashes and make it look good. Put it in your own voice, put it in your own tone, train the model, make sure it talks like you, not like ChatGPT.
Yep.
I saw a post the other day saying, here's how to know you're reading LLM ChatGPT content. If it says, and therefore, and if, in other words, it always says every time. So detectable.
Just like a company with a decent marketing person, if you're looking at a brand document, you should also be able to create one of those and have AI use it in the tone of voice and, your positioning. AI can go through and ask you a series of questions one by one. I always tell people, don't have it give you 10 questions at once, one by one, about various things about your business, and it can write that stuff for you. Versus before, I mean, I've paid PR agencies $10, $15, $20, $30,000 to create brand guides, style guides. And AI can do that in an afternoon now. Basic ones that most companies could use. You don't need the 65-page Fortune 100 company type brand and style guide, but for most businesses, AI can build in a couple hours.
That starts with a questionnaire. We feed it to all of our clients as soon as we onboard somebody. We need to know everything about their business and their messaging, their strategy, their clients, and then we build their own master prompt. And it basically tells us everything about them. So if anybody ever has a question about that client in our organization, we go to their client master prompt and ask them. There's more emailing the client asking them how they would handle this situation or that. We already know after we build the AI prompt. That's how companies should be looking at AIs. How can it help you better serve your customers more efficiently?
Yeah, I love it. I totally agree.
So what do you see on the horizon? What's happening? What can we talk about for the wrap up? Anything you see coming up? I know you're going to speak at a couple of things. Anything with AI you're excited about or business?
Yeah, always excited with AI, just because I focus on helping companies build the machines, right? And AI is a machine. A lot of what I do is involved with AI and how we go about and do what we do, because it can help out so much. You can have it answering phones, making outbound phone calls, scheduling appointments. You can have it reading your email. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do. And, if you remember the story of the England cycling team, they hadn't won anything in years. Some new leadership came in and started looking at where they could make improvements. Their mantra was, let's make 1% gains wherever we can. So they looked at the pillow that the riders were sleeping on. They looked at the seat. They looked at the tires. How can we improve that just by 1%? But when you start adding all of those things up, 50, 60 different touch points, all increasing by 1%, they end up winning the Tour de France because they had made these incremental changes. A lot of people out there are looking for these humongous changes they can make. One change I think that's almost always humongous: increase your prices. That's almost always humongous. It almost always works. And usually people have not increased their prices for a very long time. And there's a lot of reason behind that. They don't want to upset the apple cart. They're afraid they're going to lose clients. But statistics show most companies that raise their prices on a regular basis, people aren't throwing a huge fit. And again, if you're doing that in smaller degrees, instead of Like we see some of these industries like electricity or things like that. They're wanting to have a 20% or a 40% increase or sometimes a 2x increase. If done systematically, regularly, people are okay with that. Cost of living goes up, so on and so forth. I foresee businesses by necessity becoming AI experts. And I'm not talking about a reduction in staff. I'm not talking about firing people. I'm talking about scaling, growing, and maybe needing less headcount than what you needed before. Or maybe one person is wearing multiple hats now versus before you might need 3 or 4. Like I mentioned, the data analysts. And there's still places for data analysts, especially when the data sets are huge. But if you don't have huge data sets, AI can help you do that. And as a CEO, leader, COO, or manager inside the business, I think AI can help with that. So that's some of my upcoming speaking engagements about AI and how it can help small to medium-sized business owners improve their quality of life, improve their revenue gains. And, you and I have talked before, a lot of people talk about revenue, and that's their problem. When realistically, operations are their problem. They need to solve the fulfillment issues that they have. Someone just can't take on 100 new clients tomorrow. Usually sales is a secondary issue that's being inhibited because the back end can't provide the services to those companies. And so building the right systems, the right machines, in my opinion, is part of the revenue system that we help build, that I help CEOs and founders build. Software is getting better. AI is getting better. New software is coming out. It's much easier to write new software. I'm not a coder or developer by any means, but I'm writing apps for our clients. I'm creating apps for internal projects and things that we do. Things maybe before that we would have a binder of SOPs and a playbook of SOPs. Now we can put that into a website or an app that anyone in the company can look at, pull things up, and we can be able to update that real time. When things change, technology is amazing.
Being able to create something like that to help with scaling is easier now than ever before. And like you said, it's not letting people go. It's just letting people work smarter. I mean, remember when they launched Excel, they said all the accountants and bookkeepers are going to be in trouble. It's like, no, just help them work better and faster. And that's how I see AI in businesses. Now, robotics, a different thing. Robotics will take some jobs. I think.
And a whole bunch of things do. I think we get sometimes overly concerned. If you look at most people's jobs today, they're using the internet. 30 years ago, that wasn't a thing. And so things do change. I see in my own business and in my clients' businesses, people being able to save time. A frontline worker is saving a lot more time using AI to do things. And therefore they have time to pick up a couple of other things that they can do too, that also expand their skill set, make them more valuable to the company, make them more valuable if they were to leave that business and go some other place. And I know sometimes business leaders get a little concerned about that, but I want to help my people get it as good as they can in many different areas that are more valuable to me. And then it's on me to keep them. It's on me to create the culture and the business where they want to stay with us instead of going some other place. But AI can help that. AI can help teach you to learn French. I read someone was fairly conversant in French after 3 months of using, ChatGPT every single day. So there's just so many skills and things that AI can help with. I don't see it as a takeaway. I see it as an addition to what we're doing and helping us be more successful. But I will also say, Clayton, I think this is really important. The early adopters are going to gain the biggest advantage, right? Those early adopters that are getting into AI, like you, like me, and others who got into AI 3 years ago when it was brand new, were much further along than someone that's going to try to step into it and do things today. The sooner that you can get in and start doing these, the faster you're going to see those results and possibly growth over your competitors. Most companies are not implementing AI strategically. They're using it as a chat bot to help them write emails.
Yeah. And it's still early. And the biggest impact it's making on businesses, especially small and medium businesses, is sales, marketing, and operational fulfillment. It's not too late. I know a lot of people are overwhelmed by it. You have time, but you got to start learning now. And you better start hiring people that know AI too, is what I tell people. Like, don't hire somebody who knows less about AI than you. You need to hire somebody smarter than you, especially about AI. It's not too late to start learning and implementing. And everybody should have an MCP server in their business that talks to Claude, that talks to their apps. You should be able to talk to Claude like your advisor using little automations, integrations, and learn it and watch. It's going to improve. It's not perfect, but it's going to improve, and you'll be better by the time it gets to 100% or 98%. You'll be way ahead of the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell people all the time that AI is the worst it's ever going to be right now.
Oh yeah,
because it just gets better every day.
Last year it was like, oh man, it's just too much. It's not even close. But then it started getting better and better. Now it's exciting. Now's the time to jump in.
Yeah, remember the Will Smith video that AI created? Was that just like 2 years ago? And now they're amazing. And there's still little things that if you know what you're looking for, you can find different things. But yeah, it's really helpful. But again, if you're thinking about AI in general, you got to start getting in and building use cases. And there's hundreds of them. You use them in multiple ways. I use it in multiple ways. There are things that AI is doing for myself and for my own business and for my clients' businesses. It's night and day. Just like note-taking apps on meetings, giving me the transcript, and I can put that back into AI and say, hey, where did this go wrong? Or what could I have done? What are my takeaways? Instead of spending all the time going back through a meeting and writing a bunch of notes, now the AI tool can spit all those out for me. Hey, this is who's due with that, and this is who's due with that. Yeah. I can go back and look at those and say, hey, we talked about a company name. There was a competitor we talked about. I can't remember. Who was that? Oh, here it is. This is who that was. Here's the context. Lots of ways that it can be used. Simple, easy ways.
Record all your calls. If you're in a Slack group meeting, turn on the AI notes and preserve all your Zoom recordings. And even if you're not using that data now, you will soon in the future. And it'll help you train the model so it knows what you do, what you need, and what your goals are. And that's the more it knows, the more it can help you. Totally agree with that.
Yep. Something else that I've started doing recently, because almost everything I do is in a meeting, right? It's either interviewing people or finding things out or talking about meetings and recording all of those. I can easily go back and say, hey, we have this client. What did we accomplish in the last 2 weeks? Where were we and what did we do? What are the things that we're looking forward at? And it can just compile those very, very easily instead of having to flip back through a notebook and, okay, great this, and start doing math and figuring out minus this, and this is where we are, and this is where we were. AI can give me quick updates, even when I'm on a call.
Yeah.
I can type something in when I'm on a call and it can give me the information that I was looking for. So lots of cool options in degrees, small little improvements over multiple different areas in the business. Again, while you're building the right machines, not just working on revenue habits, but a revenue machine and a revenue strategy that affects all areas of the business. I think that's what's coming down the pike.
Very cool. I agree. I think it's pretty exciting too. And the earlier you start adopting, the better you'll be.
True.
Yeah.
Like anything, right?
Yeah. And people think they're left behind now, that they're too behind. You're not behind.
There's a lot of people out there, for those that are listening or watching, that feel like the boat has left. It's not that the boat has left. There's a constant stream of boats that are taking people from the shore every day. There's a lot of people out there talking about AI. As you mentioned before, they're good at talking about it, but they're not so good at doing it. I talk with dozens of business owners every month, and very few of them are implementing it. Those that are, there's a learning curve, but then they're getting better and better and better and better. And so you just got to start soon, start building that machine now.
Most of our people are not using it. They're starting to get panicky about it, but it's still time to get on and learn, test, and start implementing little things. You don't have to take it all at once. Implement something and start learning one of the LLMs. Pick one and just start learning. Ask the LLM. Ask ChatGPT how to learn, and it'll do it for you. So I love it. So Rick, CEO, coach, you've done a lot. You've said a lot. We covered a lot. How do people get in touch with you? I see you have rickables.com. You are speaking to business owners around world. You present on sales automation, getting the CEO unstuck. You're good at all that. I've seen you do it. I've worked with you on projects. Anything you want to say? Close out?
Yeah, you can go to rickables.com and see our engagements, and you can schedule a call. We can have a quick conversation and see what's happening in your business. Most people that I talk to, even if we don't work together, they at least have a couple of ideas in the bag now that they can kind of look at and where they should put their focus. Having worked with so many businesses in different industries, a lot of people think they're on an island because that's not the way their industry does things. I have found that a lot of industries are pretty similar with the basic building blocks of business and revenue generation. You can schedule a call if it's interesting to you, and we can have a discussion and see what's happening in your business and see how we can help.
Good catching up with you. Look forward to seeing you again here.
Likewise.
So,
yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for doing it.
Yeah, man. Let's catch up again soon.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you later.
Cheers. Later.